Good river crossings are often taken for granted. However, they do require lots of critical thinking and planning in order for it to be sufficient. To build a good river crossing, you need it to be safe, reliable, supported by multiple transit methods such as trains and buses, and it needs to have lots of other bridges around it to not create a bottleneck. Remember these key points, for we will come back to them later. For now though, let's take a trip to East London. In order to get from here to here by car, the fastest way would be to get onto a boat, because the planners decided that this side of the city should have river crossings, but this side, not so much. But luckily, there is one saving grace from the vast swathes of Thames that is uncrossable: the Dartford Crossing. Problem is that this crossing may just be the worst river crossing in Britain. The Dartford Crossing, formerly known as the Dartford-Thurrock River Crossing, is a bridge and tunnel going over the River Thames. The crossing has been tolled since its opening in 1963. However, when the developers got back the money for construction from the tolls in 2003, they rebranded the toll as a congestion charge, and then in 2014, they rebranded it again as the Dart Charge, which sounds like an electric scooter. Nevertheless, despite all the controversy, the Dart Charge still runs this very day in 2023. This road connects basically all of South East England south of the Thames, aka Kent, with South East England north of the Thames, aka Essex. This also means that on this bridge there is traffic from locals trying to cross the river, but also the French trying to get to the land of the good tap water. Now, there wouldn't really be any issue with what I've just described. I've basically just described a lot of crossings in England and around the world. However, the one thing that makes the Dartford Crossing the Dartford Crossing is its placement in the middle of flipping nowhere. It's 22 kilometers away from the closest road crossing and 16 kilometers away from the nearest train crossing, which would genuinely be okay if it wasn't a part of the most congested motorway in the UK and serving almost all of East London and Kent and Essex. It's almost like the designers of this crossing wanted for there to be insane traffic jams, as if they aimed to turn an otherwise essential link between Kent, Essex and London into a daily headache for commuters. The isolated location of the Dartford Crossing, surrounded by vast stretches of open land, applies congestion on this crucial route, making it seem like a deliberate attempt to test the patience of the countless drivers who rely on it. A good example of a river crossing is Rotherhithe Tunnel, a crossing on the same river as the Dartford Crossing, only it's within inner London, aka not the middle of nowhere. Rotherhithe isn't just a lone road crossing like Dartford, it also has the overground alongside it and the Jubilee line, meaning if you want to get from say Newcastle to Shadwell, you don't have to use the crossing like Google Maps recommends. You can instead just hop on an overground train and get off at your destination. Let's look at another example, Blackwall. This is the easternmost crossing of the Thames in London for cars, yet it still has support from the Jubilee line, the cable cars, the DLR, and the shiny new Elizabeth line. This means that if you want to get from, say, Woolwich to West Ham, you have a plethora of options like taking a bus, taking a train, taking the DLR, taking the cable car, then taking the train, taking the Krabby Patty Mobile, and so much more. Notice that both of the examples I've given have one thing in common: choice. You're not forced in your car or forced in a train either. This is the key to a successful crossing, because if everyone's crammed into their cars without choice, then you've got miles of traffic waiting ahead of you, which brings us back to Dartford. Dartford quite literally has no other way to get across the river without a 2-hour detour. It's the only crossing of the Thames east of London, and it practically carries Essex and Kent on its shoulders. And even then, it's scammy, to charge 2 whole Great British pounds and 50 whole Great British pence to go over the bridge when there's literally no other choice. That's like putting food on one side of the bridge and billions of people on the other, and then charging people to simply cross the bridge. Now, to be slightly fair, there is a discount if you live in Dartford or Thurrock, but that's it. There's no discount for Rainham or Erith, which are both equally as close to the bridge. All of this combined makes a huge profit for the developers of the bridge and the most congested road crossing in Britain. Let's revisit the criteria that I made at the beginning again. To build a good river crossing, you need it to be safe, reliable, supported by multiple transit methods such as trains and buses, and it needs to have lots of other bridges around it to not create a bottleneck. Notice how there is only one point which might apply to the Dartford crossing: safety. I mean, surely this 137 meter high bridge with only a 1 meter high wall protecting any vehicles to fall off is safe enough, right? Overall, The Dartford crossing is a terrible river crossing in all ways possible. But how do we fix this? How do we turn a bridge which wouldn't be accessible in the 20th century into a good river crossing that allows all modes of transport and doesn't rip people off? Let's take a further look at the crossing to assess what it needs. The crossing has 2 tunnels going north and a singular bridge going south, which means that if an accident were to occur on the bridge, then all the traffic going south will have to take hours of detours because there will be no way to cross it even without a car. To solve that, there should be tunnels or bridges with trains, trams, buses and tunnels for pedestrians and cyclists. That way, everybody can access the crossing even if there's an accident on one of the car roads. Additionally, there should be more bridges built around the crossing so that all the traffic isn't squeezed into one giant bottleneck, and we should amp up the charges for cars to cross it, because if there's good enough transport to cross the bridge, charging the cars will reduce the amount of cars on the crossing and promote sustainable transport options. And that's about it. The crossing now lives up to the standards that I made earlier and is now worthy of serving Britain. Huzzah! However, we all know that that kind of infrastructure will take years to create. So, if we're being realistic, then bus lanes and a train extension from Dartford to Thurrock would suffice. That's the least that the council surrounding the bridge can do. Will they do it though? No, they definitely won't. The £2.50 from every individual person lining their pockets is enough to not give a damn about their jobs. And that's just modern day Britain for you. For the meantime though, crossing a river will remain a privilege to me and all the other people who have to suffer every single day.